What are you doing here? Oh, it's you. Hi, welcome to Class Act Media. I'm Jack, and there's a lot of things that I love. Video games, superhero comics, etc. But on the list of things that I love, the top of that list has to be Doctor Who. I mean, a series spanning over 50 years with the possibilities being all of time and space? Sign me up. Because of this great love that I have for the show, I thought it would be fun to do a series talking about each actor's run as the titular Doctor. But first, how about a history lesson? If you know absolutely nothing about the show, Doctor Who is a British science fiction series following the adventures of a man known only as the Doctor. Yeah, it's a common misconception that his name is Doctor Who, but nope, it's just the Doctor. The title of the show is a question.
Doctor Who?
Hey, that's the name of the show.
At the beginning, it was never stated exactly who the Doctor was or where he came from, although it was heavily implied that he was not from Earth. He travels through time and space in his ship called the TARDIS, which is an anagram for time and relative dimension in space. It's established that, in the early days at least, the Doctor had very little idea how to fly the TARDIS, with him just pushing some buttons, acting like he knew what he was doing, and then having an adventure wherever and whenever he happened to land. Doctor Who was actually originally conceived as an educational show for kids, with the TARDIS planned to change its appearance based on whatever historical period it happened to be in each episode. But that proved to be too costly for the show's tiny budget, so the writers added in the detail about the ship's chameleon circuit breaking in 1963 England, causing it to permanently look like a police call box on the outside. On the inside, however, is a huge spaceship with a great 60s sci-fi future aesthetic that I absolutely love. You may have heard the phrase bigger on the inside relating to Doctor Who before, and that's where the relative dimension part of the TARDIS's name comes in. You see, the inside of the ship is actually in another dimension, just ever so slightly off from our own, allowing the interior to be as large as the writers want while keeping it nice and inconspicuous on the outside, as well as keeping the prop portable. Okay, that's enough background for now. Let's get into the meat of it. When it came to casting the Doctor, the showrunners wanted a charming old man who was good at acting stern and mysterious while also being able to show a genuine heart underneath it all. They finally settled on William Hartnell, who, if you can believe it, was 55 years old when he was cast. For comparison, here's modern-day George Clooney, who's 56. Good lord, they tried to give the Doctor sort of an otherworldly look with his hairstyle, which I think works well enough. What I don't think works all that well is his outfit. I don't know, the thick bolo tie, the monocle on a string around his neck, plus the occasional cloak makes it seem too busy, but I do like his rings. They're cool. Anyway, enough about his appearance. How's his performance? Hartnell portrays the Doctor as a stern and easily annoyed man on the surface, but get to know him and you quickly see that he has a childlike love for adventure, with a genuine sweetness and fatherly warmth. Well, I mean, it wasn't all warmth.
Now, don't get exasperated, Susan. Remember the Red Indian. When he saw the first steam train, his savage mind thought it an illusion too.
My favorite moments with Hartnell's Doctor are when he's outsmarting his enemies or figuring a way out of a dangerous situation. His devious little giggle he does every time is so infectious, I love it. Hartnell had a big responsibility, even if nobody knew it at the time. This performance would define the Doctor's character for decades to come, with pretty much every subsequent actor who has played the Doctor using Hartnell as a mold for their performances. You'd be hard-pressed to find a Doctor who doesn't have the first Doctor's trademark charming arrogance and hidden sentimentality. But hey, the Doctor isn't the only character on this show. Adventuring through time and space gets lonely on your own, so the Doctor always travels with a few companions by his side. His first team of companions were Ian Chesterton, Barbara Wright, and his granddaughter, Susan Foreman. Yeah, new Doctor Who fans might be surprised to learn that the Doctor used to have a granddaughter, and even weirder, a granddaughter with a regular English name. It's implied that this is a fake name in order to fit in with humanity, but it's still bizarre to see it contrasted with her grandfather's much more mysterious pseudonym. That's just a little nitpick I have with it though. It's understandable why it's this way, and it's not a big deal. The original crew had a great camaraderie amongst the four of them, to the point where they were sort of like a little family. The Doctor was the weird grandpa, Barbara and Ian were the mom and dad, and Susan was the annoying child that everyone secretly wished would run into traffic. Yeah, I really don't like Susan. Her only role was to be the first to see each episode's alien threat, scream and cry about it, and then get called hysterical when nobody else sees what she saw. To make matters worse, the sound she makes when she cries is just so irritating, and she does it every episode. But even then, I do have to admit that her departure in the episode The Dalek Invasion of Earth did make me kinda sad, with the Doctor realizing that this aimless wandering was making Susan unhappy, and he wanted his granddaughter to finally belong someplace. But a sad farewell does not make up for hours of annoyance, so I was ultimately happy to see her go. Ian and Barbara, on the other hand, I love. Ian is very resourceful, smart, funny, and often ends up the hero of most episodes since he does the physical acts that the Doctor isn't capable of. Barbara adds a nice motherly warmth to the show, but that doesn't mean she doesn't also contribute to stopping the villain of the week sometimes. Just not as often as Ian, cause, well, I mean, it was still the 60s. Ian and Barbara had a great friendship, and it was never explicitly stated whether or not they were romantically interested in one another, which I think works to the show's benefit. A romantic subplot between the two of them would have just added too much to the group's dynamic. But they too eventually left in the episode The Chase, where they took a Dalek time machine back to 1965, so the Doctor can't figure out how to fly his own ship, but he instantly figures out how to fly his enemy's ship? Okay. It's nice to see them finally able to return home and get the ending they wanted, but I was pretty bummed that we don't get a heartfelt goodbye between them and the Doctor. He just yells at them and then it immediately cuts to them being apart. That could have been done better, but it was satisfying to see the two of them back home and happy. As for other companions, we had Vicky, who filled the cute young girl void that Susan left behind. I like her well enough. She's cute, spunky, and adventurous, and doesn't cry in every single episode, so that bumps her up a few points right there. After Ian and Barbara left, we got Steven, who I think might be my favorite of all of the first Doctor's companions. He's that lovable, overconfident jackass character type that I just love. There was also Dodo. Yes, her name was actually Dodo, but I never liked her very much. She was a little too ditzy without much substance to her. I guess the writers didn't like her too much either, since her send-off is just her writing a letter to the Doctor saying, "Yeah man, I think I'm just gonna go home, smell you later," without anything resembling a farewell to her character. In addition, there's also Ben and Polly, but I didn't get a chance to see too much of them, so I wasn't able to form much of an opinion. From what I did see, I liked Polly a lot since she's got a lot of personality and charisma, but I didn't feel the same instant connection with Ben. I'll need to see more of him to really make up my mind on him. Story? Yeah, let's talk about the stories. Segues are hard sometimes. Okay, we've got to a part of this era of Doctor Who that I'm not super keen on, that being the stories. Not to say I dislike them, far from it, but they do have some pretty glaring problems that need to be addressed. One of my biggest issues with them is that they often take up way more time than they need. You see, in those days, Doctor Who stories were serialized and split up into groups of 25-minute long episodes. This sounds good on paper, but a few serials tended to be too long for their own good. Take the story The Web Planet, for example. Here's a summary. A race of alien moth people called the Menoptera have been enslaved by a mysterious force known as the Animus, who has mind-controlled an army of giant ants called the Zarbi in order to rule over this world, and the Doctor and his companions have to stop it. That took one sentence for me to explain to you. I want you to guess how long that serial was. Come on, give it a guess. Come on, come closer, I won't bite. Come on, just give it a guess, give it a little guess. It took 6 episodes. My god, that's 2.5 hours to tell a simple stop the bad guy story. I think one of the most egregiously verbose writers is Terry Nation, the creator of the classic Doctor Who villains, the Daleks. His serials are usually 6 to 7 episodes long with a lot of slow-paced plotting along the way. That said, most of them are saved by having some interesting philosophical ideas which promote thought and discussion and prevent the stories from feeling like complete boring slogs. Alongside that, the low budget of Doctor Who is really noticeable in some of these episodes. It seems like they couldn't afford to do multiple takes if something screwed up, so all the mistakes and flubs are kept in. For instance, in the episode The Censorites, the mic is in the shot for a few seconds. In the episode The Keys of Marinus, the Doctor starts running for his life before this guy is done explaining that the building they're in is about to explode. And there's just an awful lot of line stuttering, especially from Hartnell. It's time to play everyone's favorite game, What Did the Doctor Just Say? Here's today's clip.
And you both knocked, you knocked both Susan and I unconscious.
Alright, contestants, get in your guesses now. What'd you get? Doesn't matter, it's a trick question, I don't even know the answer. In spite of these budgetary restraints, I do think classic Doctor Who made the best with what it had. The performances are at least decent for the most part, and the sets and costumes look really good considering the limitations. Ultimately, if you've never seen Doctor Who before, I'd recommend the more modern episodes to start off. But the classic series is a great treasure for fans of the series to go back to. Whoa, we're not quite done just yet. For every episode of this retrospective series, I want to do a little top 5 list of my favorite episodes starring each Doctor. So let's do that. Starting with Number 5, An Unearthly Child. The first Doctor Who story ever, and what a great introduction to the series it is. Seeing the Doctor meet Ian and Barbara for the first time is great, and it really takes its time building up to the reveal of the Doctor. This story is low on the list because the rest of it isn't great, since it's a pretty dull caveman adventure. Seriously, the introduction to the show where the possibilities are all of time and space, and you pick the Stone Age for the first story setting? Regardless, the first part of the serial at least is a great time. Number 4, The Ark. The Doctor, Steven, and Dodo land on a spaceship carrying the remains of humanity 10 million years in the future, and Dodo accidentally ends up transmitting the common cold to the crew of the ship, which begins to spread like a plague. I really like this story because it's not about some mustache-twirling villain trying to do something nefarious. It's just a group of people all trying to ensure their shared survival, but have different ideas on how to go about it. It's just a shame that the second half of the serial devolves into a pretty dull, oh no, we have to stop the evil alien story. Like, come on, you were doing so well. But the first half is so good that it's earned a spot on this list. Number 3, The Daleks. The first story to feature the now iconic Doctor Who villains, the Daleks, and the first episode written by my mortal enemy, Terry Nation. Out of all of Nation's first Doctor serials, this is certainly the longest, clocking in at 7 episodes, but it also has my favorite themes. We see that the Daleks are trying to eradicate a race called the Thal, who have traditionally been a peaceful people. The Thals now have to grapple with a difficult decision. Will they give up on their entire culture in order to survive, or die while sticking to their traditions? It's a great struggle to watch if you have the patience. Number 2, The Sensorites. This story begins with the Doctor, Susan, Ian, and Barbara materializing on a ship with a human crew being telepathically controlled by an alien race called the Sensorites. It's soon learned that the Sensorites have had a bad experience with humanity in the past and are thus hesitant to trust these people. As the alien race slowly begins to warm up to their Earthling visitors, an angry Sensorite works behind the scenes to kill the Doctor and his friends. First off, I love the design of the Sensorites. They're sort of creepy but in a cool way. And this is another one with great themes, with the Sensorites having to get over their biases and also rethink their society of trust toward all others of their species. It's tough for these 6-parters to not seem slow, but this one is definitely worth a watch. Number 1, The Aztecs. The TARDIS lands in an ancient Aztec temple, where it is quickly cut off from the Doctor, Susan, Ian, and Barbara. While the group is trying to figure out a way to get back to it, Barbara is mistaken for a god, as is wont to happen in these kinds of stories. She tries to use her newfound power to get the Aztecs to stop committing human sacrifices, but the Doctor is incredibly worried by this, fearing that she may end up changing history. I just really like the debate between the two ideologies, and it's wrapped up in a pretty sweet way at the end. Plus, it has some great action scenes, and it's only 4 episodes long, so I highly recommend it. Unfortunately, all good things must come to an end. William Hartnell was getting old and just couldn't keep up with the demands of playing the Doctor anymore. They couldn't cancel the show, it was far too popular, so the writers thought of an idea. Since the Doctor was a vaguely defined alien, the writers gave him the ability to heal himself whenever he got too old or mortally injured, completely changing his appearance and slightly altering his personality. And just like that, William Hartnell was out, paving the way for so many more actors to portray the Doctor. But I won't forget your contribution to my favorite show, Mr. Hartnell. Thank you. Well, I hope you enjoyed the first episode of this series. Expect episode 2 before 2019. That's honestly the best I can give you. See you next time, guys, and... ah, yes. Thank you. It's good. Keep warm.